Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Rosenda Strong, Monica and Damian Shepard, Alyssa McLemore, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez and his young daughter Valeria, Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, an unidentified Asian family shopping at Sam's Club, and now with a heavy heart I must add George Floyd to this list. What do all these people have to do with ending diet culture? A lot. My name is Jessica Scalzo with Compassionate Peer Counseling. This is part 2, talking about the connection between ending diet culture and ending systemic racism. And part 1, here's the video for part 1. Go ahead and watch that because I go into the stories of the people that I just mentioned and how if their lives are not free, which they are not, and they were not, then how can we have true body liberation? This is all based on a blog that I wrote, and I'm at the point now where I'm talking about how we do have true body liberation. My argument is that it is through connection, because our society as it works right now, with all these different oppressions dividing all of us, depends on us not seeing our connection. Because when we all get connected, we have power in numbers. Connection eats birdcage wires for lunch, and it is not afraid to take up space. There's no other way for connection to be. It requires the vulnerability of seeing ourselves in others and sharing ourselves with others. If we are not willing to stretch out and inhabit our body, we will not be able to know and to share ourselves, for we cannot share what we do not know. We will not be able to know another's pain and another's joy, for when we don't know our own pains and our own joys, we cannot relate and hold space for somebody else's pain and joy. Connection is not on a diet. It is infinitely expansive. And for those of us that have had eating disorders, we know that being expansive, taking up space, inhabiting our bodies is absolutely terrifying. And that's how the eating disorder keeps us trapped in its ways of controlling us. By having us feel and that it's not okay to take up space, and having us fear it, and having us do the opposite of connection, which is separation. Separation is perpetually on a diet and infinitely restrictive. It's tight. Separation requires avoiding vulnerability and seeing ourselves as completely different than others. It does not require sharing and taking up space in our bodies. So when we have an eating disorder, we are engaging in restrictive behavior. Even if we have binge eating disorder, which I did have, we are still usually engaging in restrictive behavior because restrictive behavior almost always leads to binging behavior down the line. As Pema Chodron shares in her book, The Places That Scare You, traditionally it is said that the root of aggression and suffering is ignorance. But what is it that we're ignoring? What we ignore is our kinship with others. To recognize our interconnectedness, to grow in understanding that when we harm another, we harm ourselves. And I will add to that, when we harm ourselves, we harm others. Because when we don't know how to give ourselves true compassion and allow ourselves to be completely, authentically as we are, we will have a struggle to allow that and make space for that with everybody else. So a couple examples here of how, even if I'm engaging in work to end diet culture, if I am not aware of all the other oppressions and how they intersect and uphold diet culture, I can actually do harm, which ends up harming others, but also ends up harming myself and all the people trapped in diet culture because it upholds it as well. As an example, if I as a white person am working to dismantle diet culture and at the same time I'm culturally appropriating Black culture without giving credit and paying debt to the creators of my appropriation, then I am actually strengthening the wires that hold diet culture in place. because I am engaging in racist behavior. I know we don't think of it that way traditionally as racist behavior. It is though. And by strengthening that oppression of racism by engaging in my behavior, I'm strengthening all the other oppressions, because this one wire is now holding more strongly, which is more strongly holding the other wires in place. Another example showing the opposite of that is that if I am, as a white person, am working to dismantle diet culture and joining with indigenous women to raise awareness of the rate and impunity with which they are murdered and go missing, then I am loosening the wires that hold diet culture in place, because I'm trying to bring awareness. I am joining and connecting with another group of people, and that in itself is undoing these messages of separateness and restrictiveness and otherness. And so that's loosening the wires of racism and other wires too, which is loosening the wires that are holding up diet culture. This can also work the other way. If I'm working to dismantle racism and I'm engaging in body shaming of people, well, then I'm still strengthening those diet culture wires that are holding up, racism, sexism, and other oppressions. If I'm not directly working to dismantle diet culture, but I am working to dismantle racism, I cannot help but weaken diet culture, even if it's furthest from my mind. If we are allowing ourselves to connect, expand, and be vulnerable to see things clearly as they are, we will not be able to avoid the intersections of oppressions that create and uphold diet culture. This is much like doing our own work. If we are truly willing to look at ourselves in our totality and see all the things that we don't want to see, that is how we free ourselves from an eating disorder. That is how we recover, because we are willing to see things in their truth. Well, that's the same thing with doing this work of undoing diet culture. If we are willing to see things for what they are, which starts with us being able to see things for what they are in ourselves, then we will not be able to avoid the intersections of oppressions that uphold diet culture. We will know in our body that we must deeply look at and address these intersections of oppressions if we want to dismantle diet culture. Because we recognize our interconnectedness, we will know that every action we take, we have the opportunity to do healing or do harm. If I am unwilling to be vulnerable and see clearly, not only will I be harming others, I will be harming myself. This is not about perfectionism, and this is important to say, and it's also important for me to say to myself, because I get caught up in this a lot. We will not always be willing to be vulnerable, expand, and see clearly. Our body can only go at the speed that it can go. That's the vulnerability part, is being able to check in and see the things that maybe we don't want to see, which is, hey, I can only do this right now. And maybe our mind and our ego is saying, no, we have to do more based on our fear of what other people will think of us. This is engaging in a subtle aggression against ourselves. This is not expansive. This is not connection. This is fear. This is trying to shrink ourselves and be something that we're not. It's okay that we can only go at the speed that we can go, because we're not going to be ending any of these oppressions in one day. This takes consistent, patient work. And it's okay to start at any place. Also on this topic, with all the protesting that's been happening nationwide and all the work that people are doing to really look at biases and look at ways that we are upholding these systems of oppression that are harming people, there's also, a lot of fear of, I might say the wrong thing, and so I'm gonna say nothing. And that's also this perfectionistic thinking, being concerned with what people are thinking about us. Yes, it's important to have awareness of what we're saying. I wouldn't recommend just, saying something off the top of my head and not really sitting with it and understanding the meaning of what I'm saying and not doing my own work. And it's also important to take action. And so if we are so consumed with having to say the right thing that we're not taking action, then that's not helping either. And it's okay to say the wrong thing. I want to say that here. It is okay to say the wrong thing. It might be uncomfortable, there might be backlash, and it's okay. We will learn from it. And that's a positive thing. We will learn to accept the discomfort. We will be able to practice sitting with the discomfort. And that's a positive thing. We will practice being able to sitting with the shame. And we can learn and grow and move on and keep taking action to make our world a more equitable place. I will take it home with a quote from Martin Luther King talking about really our true interconnectedness. He says, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." Thank you for your time and attention.